Welcome, dear friend, to a quiet moment of rest. Thank you for joining me this evening as we embark on a gentle journey together, designed to guide you into the calm depths of slumber. Before we begin, make sure you're in a safe and comfortable space, somewhere you can close your eyes and let go of the day's worries. As you settle in, allow your breathing to slow and soften. Notice how each breath brings with it a wave of calm, gently flowing from your head to your toes. Imagine a soft, warm glow surrounding you, like a lullaby in the air, ready to carry you into a peaceful night's sleep. Now, let's step into our story, one soothing word at a time. Chapter 1: A Flicker of Starlight. At first, there was only the gentle hush of cosmic emptiness, a stillness so immense it might have devoured all sense of space and time were it not for the countless flickers of starlight that danced across the void. Imagine that vast emptiness as you would the hush of a late summer evening, the air holding its breath, the horizon gilded by a retreating glow, and you, standing at its threshold, gazing outward. Perhaps the night feels tangible, the silence thick like velvet, or perhaps it's comforting, a cradle of possibilities. In one small corner of this endless cosmos, humankind had carved out a slender foothold among the stars. Earth, the cradle of life, a world of swirling blues and greens, no longer confined the adventurous heart of humanity. Over the centuries, fragile alliances and ambitious expeditions had pushed the boundaries ever outward, forging new pathways in the cosmic dark. Robotic probes discovered habitable exoplanets. Generation ships colonized distant star systems. Warp drive technology, gleaned from decades of tireless research, allowed the known galaxy to shrink before humankind's eager grasp. But for all that expansion, for all the wonders that the cosmos offered, there remained mysteries that beckoned with untold secrets. A phenomenon recently detected in deep space, a gravitational anomaly that defied conventional physics, had become the talk of every scientific community. It emitted pulses of energy at regular intervals, powerful enough to distort local space-time. The anomaly was not only stable, but seemingly deliberate, as though set in motion by an ancient intelligence. It was a riddle, a question posed by the universe itself. No one knew what the anomaly was, or who or what might have created it. But the desire to find out was irresistible. The starship Odyssey Light was built for this singular purpose, to investigate the phenomenon and seek answers. She was the product of a new golden age of spaceship engineering. Her warp drives thrummed with cutting-edge technology, her hull constructed of an alloy strong enough to endure gravitational extremes. Within her corridors, a small but diverse crew of scientists, navigators, engineers, and explorers prepared to embark on what could be humanity's boldest venture yet. Standing on Earth's lunar dockyard in one of the pressurized hangars, Captain Ayla Harrington surveyed her ship for what might have been the 1,000th time that day. A seasoned pilot and explorer, Ayla was known for balancing scientific rigor with a profound sense of wonder. She had captained 2 previous interstellar missions, though neither had carried the magnitude and mysteries that awaited her now. Behind her stood Dr. Orvar Chevalier, the mission's lead physicist, whose intense eyes seemed perpetually alight with curiosity. Of average stature, with silver-streaked hair that spoke to many decades of tinkering with the boundaries of physical laws, Orvar Chevalier was the person most intimately acquainted with the newly detected anomaly. He had studied it for months, analyzing data from advanced telescopes positioned along the outer reaches of colonized space. "I've never seen anything behave quite like this anomaly," Orvar said, for the 10th time that hour. His voice held a hint of awe as he reviewed the data on a handheld console. "It's as if something or someone wanted us to find it. The pulses are regular, like a beacon." Ayla, arms folded across her chest, nodded. "You've mentioned that more than once." She smiled, taking some of the sting out of her words. "And I still can't believe it. Are you sure there's no natural explanation?" "Not with the mathematics we use. The gravitational fluctuations are cyclical, precise, and symmetrical. It's a perfect repeating pattern, nearly impossible in chaotic cosmic phenomena." Ayla exhaled and turned to face the sleek hull of Odyssey's Light. "Then we'll find out for ourselves. If it's a beacon, we answer. If it's something else altogether." She let her words drift. The possibilities were infinite, and that infinity called to her. She turned back to Orvar, noticing the slightest tremor in his hands, nerves, excitement, perhaps a mix of both. She placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "You're about to embark on the mission of your life, Doctor. Let's channel that nervous energy into something productive." He lifted his gaze, the excitement plain on his face. "I've waited my entire career for something like this. I'm ready." They strode across the hangar. Engineers performed final checks. Flight techs updated Ayla on everything from life support calibrations to hull integrity stats. The overhead lights glowed with a fluorescent hum, but beyond the pressurized windows lay the silent expanse of the lunar dockyard. In that silent expanse loomed the vast sphere of Earth, a shimmering tapestry of life that now felt somehow small against the cosmic wonder they were about to chase. Soon, the entire crew of 35 would be aboard. The cargo holds carried an array of research equipment, rovers, drones, and supplies for extended operation. If all went well, they would return after an undetermined period long enough to gather vital data, possibly to make contact if the anomaly turned out to be artificial. But cosmic voyages seldom proceeded without surprises. Before boarding, Ayla paused at a large viewing window to cast one final look at Earth. As the planet's marble-like orb glowed in the distance, she allowed herself a moment of silent reflection, recalling the early days of her youth in the Jamaican countryside, lush farmland and sweet breezes. She remembered lying on the grass under the starry night sky, enthralled by the immensity overhead. Back then, she never could have imagined she'd one day stand here about to command a vessel to the edges of known space. Captain Orvar's gentle nudge brought her back. She inhaled, gazing one last time upon Earth. Then, standing straight, she turned from the cradle of humanity and walked toward the airlock hatch of the starship. A hush of anticipation fell over her mind, settling into that meditative calm explorers adopt when they embark on a momentous journey. With every step, she grew more certain. A new chapter of cosmic exploration was about to unfold. Chapter 2. Crew Assembly. The interior corridors of Odyssey's Light were as pristine as a newly constructed masterpiece could be. Streamlined walls of polished alloy curved gently, lit from within by soft ambient lighting designed to reduce stress on the eyes. Beyond aesthetics, every inch of the ship aimed at practical function. Hatches, consoles, and panels were carefully labeled and arranged based on decades of ergonomics research gleaned from life aboard earlier starships. As Ayla and Orvar made their way to the main briefing room, they passed a series of smaller compartments, research labs, communal lounges, storage bays. Some doors were open, revealing glimpses of equipment and the busy movement of the crew. The hum of conversation echoed in the corridors, a background music that ebbed and flowed with the ship's gentle mechanical pulse. They arrived at a circular room located near the center of the ship's command deck. Within, large monitors displayed star maps and rotating three-dimensional projections of the anomaly's location. Captain Harrington was greeted by the sight of her chief navigator, Lieutenant Tanaka, methodically running simulations of the planned flight path. Rika wore a slender neural interface at her temple, a device allowing her to input navigational commands with just a flicker of thought. She glanced up from her console, offered a curt but warm nod, then resumed her work, gathered in a semicircle. Around the central display were the mission's senior officers. Commander Dev Afalabi, first officer, whose mastery of interpersonal dynamics and smooth crisis management had earned him unwavering respect. Chief Engineer Lian Li Song, a mechanical genius in her mid-30s, recognized for her ability to diagnose starship malfunctions in minutes. Dr. Kira Bashir, a xenobiologist chosen for her cutting-edge research on extraterrestrial organisms. She was the one who had first recognized signals that might indicate the presence of biological matter near gravitational anomalies. Security. Chief Annika Rhodes, a compact powerhouse with a calm but intense demeanor. If there was a risk of an unknown threat, she would not be caught unprepared. When Ayla and Orvar entered, every head turned, conversations hushed. Eyes gleamed with that heady mixture of curiosity and anticipation. Captain Commander Afolabi greeted. He was tall and broad-shouldered, voice low and steady. We've just completed the pre-departure systems checks. All critical systems read normal. Excellent. Ayla moved to the center of the room. At a glance, she recognized each face, sensing their unity under the mission's banner. I appreciate everyone's hard work. We launch in less than 2 hours. Before we do, Dr. Chevalier has a final briefing on the anomaly and our initial approach vector. Orvar Chevalier gave a polite nod to the others and tapped a few icons on the nearest console. At once, the central display materialized into a holographic representation of the phenomenon. The entire group leaned forward, gazing at a swirling, pulsating mass that faintly resembled a spiral galaxy spinning in place, though it was no bigger than a moon. This is the gravitational anomaly, Orvar began, voice subdued with scholarly reverence. It lies in the uncharted region beyond the Taldaris expanse, roughly 70 light-years from our nearest colony outpost. We've had sporadic data from deep space telescopes, but that's all. Our objective is to reach the anomaly, establish a stable orbit at a safe distance, and collect more accurate readings. With luck, we'll pinpoint the source of the pulses. He tapped a control. The hologram zoomed in, revealing arcs of gravitational energy streaming outward in concentric ripples. The pulses are stable, repeating every 3.14 hours. Yes, pi hours. That's the first oddity. A cosmic phenomenon tied to pi is, well, it's no coincidence. Someone or something encoded a universal constant into a gravitational wave. The question is why? A hush followed, the crew's collective thoughts turning the question over. Dr. Bashir broke the silence. Could the pulses be naturally forming some kind of resonance with pi, or is it purely artificial? Orvar offered a half shrug. I can't say for certain, but everything points to an intelligent design. No known cosmic process would maintain such perfect intervals. Security Chief Rhodes leaned forward. What if it's a trap? A lure? Commander Afolabi calmly raised a brow at that. It's a possibility, which is why we proceed with caution. Keep in mind that the energy required to manipulate gravity at this scale would be tremendous. If an entity can harness that power, we'll need to be prepared for unconventional threats. The group exchanged glances. The potential dangers were obvious. Hostile aliens, unknown cosmic forces, or the possibility of being caught in a gravitational well that even Odyssey's light might not escape. But fear was tempered by the lure of discovery. Ayla cleared her throat, drawing everyone's attention. We leave soon. Once we're en route, we'll have about 2 weeks in warp. Dr. Chevalier will coordinate the daily research tasks with Dr. Bashir and the rest of our science teams. Chief Rhodes, ensure we have protocols in place for possible contact scenarios. Commander Afolabi, coordinate with Lot Tanaka for the best approach to the anomaly. And Chief Engineer Song, see that the warp drive performs at optimal capacity. If this phenomenon is half as interesting as we think, we'll need every ounce of engine power. Acknowledgements reverberated around the room. Each officer departed on Ayla's dismissal, leaving behind only the swirl of projected starlight. After they left, Ayla lingered, her gaze drifting across the hologram. The phenomenon rotated serenely, pulsing faintly, 3.14 hours, over and over, a cosmic heartbeat calling them across the void. She took a slow, measured breath. The moment reminded her of the hush of a meadow at twilight, where tall grasses swayed in the breeze, and a distant light beckoned toward comfort and possibility. Now, that light was a gravitational anomaly in the depths of space, no less inviting, no less mysterious. What wonders await us, she thought. Ayla exhaled and switched off the display. Soon, they would leave the cradle of Earth behind, forging a path to the unknown. If this was the dawn of infinity, she meant to greet it with open eyes and a steadfast heart. Chapter 3. Departure, the final countdown to departure, always carried a distinct electricity, an amalgam of excitement and trepidation. The entire crew of Odyssey's Light was strapped into their respective stations, going through pre-flight protocols. In the command center, Ayla settled into the captain's chair, the fine upholstery hugging the contours of her body in a comforting embrace. Before her lay a wide, curved screen displaying a panorama of starry space and the gentle curve of the lunar dockyard's ring structures. Nav systems online, Lieutenant Tanaka reported, fingers dancing across a sleek console. Warp route plotted, clearances granted from lunar control. Life support and environmental controls reading optimal. Dr. Bashir added from a side station, though her primary role was xenobiology, she had cross-training to monitor atmospheric conditions on extended voyages. Engine core stable, came Chief Engineer Song's voice over comms from the engineering deck. Standing by for ignition, Ayla glanced at the digital clock overhead. 0. "45. Until ignition. Commander Afolabi, final status." He checked the readouts. "All systems go, Captain." Ayla keyed the ship-wide intercom. "All hands, this is Captain Harrington. In just under 2 minutes, we'll begin our departure sequence. Make sure all critical items are secure. prepare for the next chapter of humanity's journey among the stars. She felt the subtlest shift beneath her feet as the docking clamps released. Low thrusters engaged, nudging the massive vessel away from its berth. Outside, the panoramic view shifted. Earth's luminous sphere came into clear focus. Ayla found herself gazing at the swirling blues and whites with a curious sense of distance, as though she were watching the memory of home slip away. Then came the countdown. 10, 9, 8. The ship's artificial gravity gently adjusted to the slight pivot. 7, 6, 5. The hum of the warp drive crescendoed, rising in pitch like a deep chord vibrating through the hull. 4, 3, 2, 1. A soft jolt reverberated as the main engines roared into life. Odyssey's Light accelerated away from the lunar dockyard, leaving behind Earth's gray satellite and the shimmering orb that had birthed humanity. Along the hull, observation windows revealed streaks of stars as the vessel aligned itself for the warp jump. A hush of awe fell across the flight crew. Warp field generator at full capacity. Lieutenant Tanaka reported, voice tense with controlled excitement. Transition to FTL in 10 seconds. The warp bubble formed around the ship like a protective cocoon, bending space-time. Distances compressed, stars elongated into lines of blue and white brilliance, and then, with a slight lurch, they were gone from Earth's doorstep, flung into the cosmic seas at faster-than-light velocity. In that instant, everyone experienced a fleeting wave of vertigo, a hallmark of the warp transition. Ayla gripped the armrests, exhaling slowly. The swirling kaleidoscope on the forward screens steadied into a consistent pattern of shifting light, an indicator that the warp bubble was stable. And we're away, Ayla said, breathing out the tension. An excited murmur swept through. The bridge, the first stage of their journey, was complete. Behind them, Earth receded into a memory. Ahead lay billions of stars, and among them, the mysterious anomaly. Chapter 4. Among the stars, the first few days in warp were a bustle of activity. Officially, the ship's systems required thorough monitoring, ensuring the warp bubble remained stable, calibrating sensor arrays, synchronizing the autopilot navigation. Unofficially, there was a shared excitement, a honeymoon period where the novelty of traveling far from known territory infused everyone's steps with buoyancy. Outside the portholes, the universe existed as an abstract smear of light, not quite black, not quite recognizable stars, but a swirling tapestry that hinted at the laws of physics bending around them. Periodically, the warp engines needed a cool down, at which point the ship would exit FTL speed for a few hours of subliminal travel. This gave the crew moments to glimpse the real stars, to watch passing nebulae or distant systems glow in silent brilliance. During one such cool down, Dr. Bashir and Dr. Chevalier gathered in a small observation deck on the starboard side, joined by a few curious crew members. The deck featured curved windows that offered a panoramic view of space. There, a veiled gaseous cloud glimmered, an unnamed nebula they had chanced upon. Dr. Bashir set down her data tablet. Makes you wonder if there are undiscovered forms of life even in these clouds, she mused. Bioluminescent microorganisms drifting across eons, unknown to us. Orvar nodded, eyes fixed on the distant, ghostly glow. The universe doesn't lack for mysteries. Part of me hopes we aren't alone. Another part. He paused, seemingly at a loss for words. You worry what we might find, she finished for him. He inhaled softly. Yes, or more accurately, what might find us. They stood in silence, watching cosmic light shimmer across the observation deck. It was a subtle reminder that their mission, while thrilling, also skirted the edge of the unknown. Even the starlight, so serene, carried echoes of cataclysmic processes, supernovae, black holes, cosmic radiation. Eventually, they parted ways, each returning to their responsibilities. The warp cooled, the engines reignited, and the journey continued. Routines formed, daily meetings, calibrations, life support checks, crew leisure activities, and the constant study of the anomalies data. Every day brought them 5 or 6 light years closer. Within that humdrum schedule, friendships blossomed. Crew members shared stories of home, of past voyages, of hopes for what they might discover. It was akin to an interstellar village, forging camaraderie in the isolated vastness of deep space. Even so, an undercurrent of anticipation threaded through everything, a subtle hum in the back of everyone's mind. The anomaly was waiting, and it was calling them closer. Chapter 5. Echoes in the Night. 7 days into the journey, the first sign of something unusual arrived as a sensor blip during a warp cooldown. That evening, Captain Harrington had settled in her quarters with a cup of chamomile tea, savoring a moment's respite. Her quarters were modest but comfortable. A narrow bed, a small workspace, a viewport that offered glimpses of passing starlight. It was just enough to remind her of home, wherever that might be now. Her comm panel beeped. She set her tea aside, pressing the respond button. Harrington here. Captain, came the urgent voice of Lander Tanaka. You'll want to see this. Within minutes, Ayla was on the bridge, hair still slightly disheveled from rest. Report, she said, taking her seat. Commander Afolabi directed her attention to the main screen. Sensors picked up a faint signal coming from starboard, about half a light year away. It lasted only a moment, then vanished. A faint signal at half a light year was not uncommon in space. Ships, cosmic phenomena, random bursts of radiation, but something in the hush of the bridge told Ayla this was significant. Could it be a standard communications ping? she asked. Any ID signature? Lella. Tanaka shook her head. No standard identification. It's just noise, but with a pattern, like a heartbeat. We ran a filter. There's a repetition every 3 hours or so, extremely faint. A ripple of recognition passed through the bridge. Dr. Chevalier, who had just arrived, turned pale. 3 hours, he whispered. You said every 3 hours, not 3:14. Tanaka shrugged. We only caught one cycle. I can't confirm a decimal pattern, but it's definitely rhythmic. Ayla steepled her fingers, leaning forward. Could we investigate? Or would that deviate us from the anomaly's path? Commander Afolabi checked the star charts. It's slightly off course. A day of travel, maybe more. Orvar frowned, running mental calculations. The anomaly remains priority, but this could be related. If we find additional data, or potentially another clue as to who created that gravitational anomaly. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Space was vast, and to encounter such a signal was rare. Yet, their primary mission was pressing. No one wanted to risk losing valuable time chasing a phantom. Ayla inhaled, measuring her words. We'll keep scanning. If it repeats, we'll note the coordinates and passively adjust our flight path. If it's not too large, a detour. But I'm not redirecting for an entire day on speculation alone. Understood, the crew acknowledged. She turned to Dr. Chevalier. If it repeats, run an immediate deep analysis and let me know the moment you find any correlation to the anomaly's pulses. Until then, we continue as planned. She felt the lingering tension even after the screen dimmed. Space was speaking to them, but in half-formed whispers. Whatever that faint signal was, it might be an echo of the same cosmic intelligence that created the anomaly, or it might be nothing more than background noise. They had to keep their senses open. Chapter 6. Portents over the next few days, the signal did not reappear. The crew resumed normal operations, though a subtle anxiety had planted itself in their collective psyche. Sometimes in the hush of the corridors, someone would mention the mysterious signal in hushed tones, like a campfire story about ghosts. The intangible presence of something out there kept them on edge. Meanwhile, Dr. Chevalier was consumed with analyzing the gravitational anomaly data. He and Dr. Bashir spent countless hours in Lab 2B, correlating the anomaly's pulse intervals with historical cosmic events. They found nothing definitive, yet Orvar's excitement only grew. There has to be a meaning here, he insisted, one afternoon, scanning rows of data on a transparent screen. This is a deliberate message embedded in the universal constant. It's so elegantly done, like it's waiting for someone to decode it. Dr. Bashir sipped a mug of strong coffee, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. Even if we figure out the code, we still need context. What if it's just a cosmic trick? some unknown natural process. But the beacon-like intervals Orvar pointed out, the repeating cycles, the pi correlation, I can't just write that off. Nature can be chaotic, but this is too perfect. She set her mug down, massaging her temple. We'll know more when we arrive. For now, let's not lose ourselves in speculation. He nodded, though his mind clearly roamed the cosmos. The riddle of the anomaly hung before him, tantalizingly close, yet maddeningly out of reach. That same afternoon, Commander Afolabi oversaw a mandatory security drill. Crew members practiced donning zero-G suits and responding to simulated hull breaches. The drill was swift and efficient, testament to the thorough training that preceded the mission. Even so, Afolabi couldn't shake a nagging sense of unease. He found Chief Rhodes afterward, stowing away equipment in the armory. "Everything goes smoothly?" he asked, feigning casualness. She nodded. Yes, performance was above average, but they're tense. Afolabi sighed. "We all are. Signals in the dark, strange anomalies. We're venturing so far from established routes. It's only natural." "Agreed. My department is ready for any contingency, sir. But I'd be lying if I said I'm not a bit uneasy myself. This feels different than previous missions." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll manage. Keep them focused and well-drilled. I'll handle morale. Deal?" She cracked a faint smile. "Deal." Chapter 7. A glimpse of the unknown. The 12th day, Odyssey's Light was set for its scheduled warp cooldown cycle. As the engines powered down from FTL, the ship coasted back into normal space, stars resuming their familiar pinpoint brilliance. The crew settled into the routine checks, scanning local space, adjusting sensor arrays, venting heat, and letting the warp coils regenerate. This time, the local scan revealed an unexpected reading. Commander Afolabi, monitoring from the bridge, leaned toward Lieutenant Tanaka's console. "What am I seeing?" "A star system about 0.2 light-years away," Tanaka answered, brow furrowed. "It wasn't on our standard charts, or at least it wasn't marked as relevant. But something's generating a strong gravitic fluctuation there. Could be a black hole, neutron star, or a weird stellar phenomenon." Captain Harrington, alerted by Afolabi, arrived swiftly. "Anything to do with our anomaly?" Orvar hurried in, out of breath. "I heard the word gravitic fluctuation. Where is it?" Tanaka magnified the star chart. A faint, unremarkable star system flickered. "It's a G-type star, 8 planets, nothing special, but the second planet has abnormal readings, like mini gravitational pulses, less intense than our anomaly, but not random either." A hush fell. Could this be a smaller version of the main anomaly? A signpost? With the main anomaly still about 3 days away, the decision needed swift resolution. investigate, or stay the course. Every officer understood the importance of their primary mission, but curiosity tugged. If there were more anomalies, smaller ones, scattered across this sector, it might reshape everything they understood about the phenomenon's scope. Ayla took a decisive breath. "Commander, plot a sublight course for the star system. Let's see if a short detour can give us more insight." Afolabi nodded. "Understood. It'll add perhaps 12 hours to our overall journey." "Do it," she confirmed. "Have Dr. Chevalier ready the science team. We'll do a quick survey." With that, Odyssey's Light pivoted from her initial course, thrusters pushing her toward an uncharted planetary system. The shift in momentum felt both thrilling and ominous. New territory beckoned. Would it be friend, foe, or just another silent rock drifting through cosmic blackness? The journey to the system was uneventful. The crew watched from observation decks as the G-type star grew brighter, its radiance painting the corridors in golden hues. Eventually, they entered a high orbit around the second planet, scanning it with every instrument available. The planet itself was about the size of Earth, with swirling gray clouds that hinted at a toxic atmosphere. Long-range readings showed methane, ammonia, and a barrage of radioactive elements. No signs of life that the crew could detect. Yet the gravitational anomalies were real, spiking in a bizarre pattern. In the main lab, Orvar, Dr. Bashir, and a handful of scientists analyzed the data in real time. "Look at these spikes," Orvar pointed to the readings. "They're localized near the planet's northern hemisphere. There's an entire region with gravitational distortions." Commander Afolabi joined them, arms folded, expression grave. "Any chance it's a natural phenomenon?" Bashir studied the readouts. Volcanic activity could produce short-term anomalies, but not in such a neat pattern. This is geometric, almost fractal in nature. Could it be artificial? Orvar let out a long sigh. "Only one way to find out. We need a closer look." A bold landing. 40 minutes later, Captain Harrington convened her senior staff. "We're going down. Volunteers only. A short mission to gather on-site readings. The atmosphere is toxic, so we'll need protective gear. We'll land near the epicenter of the distortions. If it looks too dangerous, we pull out immediately." Despite the risk, nearly everyone volunteered. After some debate, a team of 8 was assembled. Captain Harrington, Dr. Chevalier, Dr. Bashir, Chief Rhodes, 2 security officers, and 2 field researchers skilled in planetary geology. They prepped a small landing shuttle, Aurora, designed for short-range excursions in harsh environments. As the shuttle disengaged from Odyssey's Light, tension and excitement coiled within the confines of their suits. The planet's surface loomed through the viewport, a terrain of dark, rocky outcroppings and swirling toxic storms. Ayla felt the comforting hum of the shuttle's engines beneath her feet. After a turbulent descent, guided by Lieutenant Tanaka's remote assistance, Aurora touched down on a plateau. Outside, the swirl of noxious gases made the horizon hazy and ominous. The gravitational anomalies spiked on their instruments, intense but localized. "All right," Ayla said, her voice echoing in the sealed helmet. "We proceed on foot, gather samples, take readings. Let's find out if this ties back to our main anomaly. Stay close." The shuttle ramp lowered, and an eerie orange light spilled in, revealing a rocky expanse. Chief Rhodes moved ahead, scanning with a portable sensor. The ground crunched underfoot, dust swirling in patterns that defied the ambient winds. Another sign of the gravitational irregularities. Dr. Bashir knelt beside a boulder, scanning its composition. This rock is laced with an unknown crystalline structure, possibly related to the anomalies. Orvar advanced slowly, holding a specialized gravimetric scanner. As he approached the edge of a cliff, the device beeped furiously. "It's strongest here," he called. They regrouped at the cliff's edge. Through the toxic haze, they glimpsed a formation of geometric pillars rising from a canyon floor. An unmistakably artificial pattern. Gasps filled the calm as they realized what they were seeing. A structure of some kind, arranged in concentric circles, half buried in the planet's crust. Alia's voice trembled over the calm. "That's not natural." Chief Rhodes motioned for the group to crouch behind an outcropping. "We don't see any movement, no life signs, but it's definitely a constructed site." In the swirling haze of that alien world, time seemed to slow. The pillars faintly glimmered, possibly embedded with metallic or crystalline materials that reflected the sickly sunlight. A hush fell among the team as they grappled with the implications. They had discovered evidence of an advanced civilization, or at least advanced engineering, on a planet that was otherwise inhospitable to life. Moreover, the geometry of those circles resonated with the gravitational anomalies they had been tracking. "Captain," Orvar's voice was barely above a whisper. "This could be connected to the anomaly, another part of the puzzle." The possibilities churned through Ayla's mind. If they had found a smaller version of the anomaly's technology here, it meant the phenomenon wasn't an isolated event. Was it a network across multiple planets or star systems? And if so, for what purpose? She took a steadying breath. "We'll document everything we can," she said, "but we need to be cautious. We don't know what triggers this technology, or if it's even safe to approach." The group nodded, each one casting a wary glance at the silent pillars in the canyon below. Somewhere in the swirling dust, a gravitational force pulsed in cryptic intervals, as though beating out a message that no human mind had yet deciphered. They were standing on the precipice of an ancient secret, perhaps a breadcrumb left by a unknown intelligence, or a relic of a cosmic phenomenon that defied explanation. Whatever it was, it felt both awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling. Here, On this toxic planet, the universe was laying bare one of its enigmas, and Odyssey's Light's crew had to decide how deeply they dared to peer into its heart. End of Part 1. Chapter 8. Descent into Darkness. The alien pillars stood like silent sentinels in the toxic haze, each one carved from a metallic alloy the Odyssey's Light landing team had never encountered. Their surfaces caught the weak orange light from the star overhead and glimmered in faint, rhythmic pulses, a hypnotic sight in the planet's swirling dust. Captain Ayla Harrington and her landing party crouched near the edge of a rocky precipice. High above, black clouds roiled across a burned orange sky. The atmosphere was lethal, rich in ammonia and methane, yet eerily still. Inside their sealed suits, the explorers moved with measured care, scanning every inch of ground for stability. Razor-sharp shards of rock jutted from the plateau, and each step kicked up swirling motes of dust that danced against the gravitational anomalies churning beneath the planet's surface. Dr. Orvar Chevalier placed a small disc-shaped gravimetric sensor on the ground, tapping a sequence on his forearm console. Immediately, the sensor beeped, lights flickering in shades of green and blue. "These readings are off the charts," he whispered over the comm. "The distortions are more intense than they appeared from orbit." "Intense enough to be dangerous?" Ayla asked, scanning the immediate area through her visor. Orvar hesitated, the hum of the sensor resonating in his ears. "Potentially. The gravitational fields keep fluctuating, but so far, the anomalies come in steady, localized pulses. No sign of an imminent wave that could tear us apart." He frowned at the data. "Still, it's beyond anything I've measured before." Chief Security Officer Annika Rhodes surveyed the canyon below through the digital scope on her helmet. Wind hissed across the plateau. She spotted the ring of pillars again, half buried in the dusky basin. "Captain, those structures definitely aren't natural. Maybe an outpost or temple." Her voice carried a hint of awe. "No signs of activity. Just readings." Dr. Kira Bashir, the xenobiologist, joined Orvar by the gravimetric sensor. She ran a complementary sweep with her own device. "I'm picking up an unusual electromagnetic signature, some trace of organometallic compounds. Could indicate advanced machinery." She exchanged a glance with Orvar. "Or possibly remains of biological components integrated into the architecture." That statement hung in the stale air, an ancient, abandoned site with integrated organometallic technology on a planet that otherwise seemed lifeless. The notion set Ayla's pulse racing. She realized they were on the verge of a discovery that could reframe humanity's place in the cosmos. "All right," she finally said, shifting her gaze around the basalt-like spires that surrounded them. We'll head down into the canyon for a closer look. Keep an eye on your hazard gauges, and if the gravitational anomalies spike beyond safe levels, we abort. Her voice was calm, though her heart pounded. She could sense the significance of the moment, an echo of the feeling she'd had when they first discovered the primary anomalies' cyclical pulses, or when she first set foot on Earth's moon as a young cadet. Even in this toxic darkness, possibility gleamed like a distant star. The team established a safe route down. Security officers Mendez and Garza rigged lines and tested the rock face. The gravitational fluctuations made each step precarious. Dust-laden wind whipped the ropes, swirling in ghostly eddies. Slowly, the 8-person crew descended. Their helmet lamps cut through the haze, illuminating pockets of stone and revealing glimpses of the canyon floor. As they neared the bottom, the pulses grew stronger. Static crackled in their suit radios, the environment itself resisting their intrusion. The pillars, up close, were arranged in precise concentric circles, each one a few meters in diameter and at least 20 meters tall. Ancient runes, or something like them, etched the surface in swirling lines. The group paused at the outer ring, each person drawing a cautious breath. Are these inscriptions? Dr. Bashir leaned forward, letting the glow of her helmet lamp illuminate the markings on the pillar's side. She ran a gloved fingertip over them. They resemble script, but I can't identify any recognizable patterns. She lifted a small scanning device, capturing high-resolution images for later study. Captain Harrington circled a different pillar, shining her light on the carvings. They looked so deliberate. If this was a language, then there must have been people or beings here who understood it. Chief Rhodes knelt at the base of the pillar, prodding the ground. The soil crumbled under her gauntlet, revealing more segments of buried metal. This entire canyon might be part of a larger structure. These pillars could be spires poking through the surface. Orvar's device beeped again. The gravitational pulses are at their highest intensity, right near that central area. He turned, pointing toward the canyon's core. Through the swirling orange haze, they glimpsed an even larger construct, wider, squat, with a flattened top. An energy wave shimmered across its surface, reminiscent of faint, watery reflections of light. "Captain," said Orvar, voice hushed, "we need to get closer." Ayla nodded, feeling the tension coil in her stomach. Every rational part of her wanted to proceed carefully. This was an alien site with unknown dangers, but the same part of her that had steered them across the galaxy now urged her onward, determined to piece together this enigma. She raised her hand in a silent signal, and the group advanced, stepping across the uneven ground, the dust swirling around their boots. Each pulse now felt like a heartbeat beneath their feet, an insistent thrum that resonated through the stone and up their legs. Ayla wondered if she was imagining it, her mind playing tricks, or if something in the structure was truly reaching out, whispering across time and space. In the middle of that canyon, ringed by towering pillars etched with indecipherable glyphs, they found an octagonal platform. Its surface glowed faintly, each edge intersected by lines of what looked like veins of shimmering crystals. Most were dark, but a few glowed in pulsing intervals, reminiscent of the main anomalies cycle. 3.14 hours for the large-scale pulses, but here it was far more rapid, a local effect occurring every few minutes. The moment Dr. Chevalier stepped onto the platform, his instruments soared with readings that spiked off the charts. A trembling awe spread across his face. "We're standing on a piece of the puzzle," he breathed. The question lingered in the dust-choked air. What puzzle, and who left it here to be found? Chapter 9. The Hidden Patterns. The octagonal platform felt almost alive beneath their feet. Dr. Chevalier's handheld scanner whirred incessantly, displaying cryptic waveforms. The rest of the landing party formed a loose circle, weapons holstered but present, scanning with equal parts scientific wonder and readiness for danger. Lieutenant Mendez, one of the security officers, broke the momentary silence. "Captain, these readings, it's like there's an entire data stream encoded in the pulses. I can't make heads or tails of it, but there's a pattern." Ayla Harrington crouched to better examine the luminous veins that threaded the platform. She brushed away a layer of dust, revealing a sheen that reflected her helmet lamp. Up close, the lines appeared to be crystalline conduits, each about an inch wide, set into the metallic base. They were arranged in a geometric lattice, intricate and mesmerizing. "Orvar," she said quietly. "Any guess what these conduits might do?" He stepped next to her, kneeling to run his own scans. "They could be channeling energy, gravitational, electromagnetic, maybe something else entirely. If these are functional systems, we might be looking at a technological artifact so advanced it borders on magic to us." Dr. Bashir had her own scanner aimed at the pillar's inscriptions, cross-referencing them with the patterns in the platform. "I'm seeing correlations between the pillar markings and these lines. My guess is that the entire site is a single structure, like a circuit board. Each pillar might be a node, and this platform is the core." A jolt of excitement rippled through the team, though none of them fully understood what they were dealing with. The uniform logic of it was clear. Someone, some civilization, had designed this place with painstaking intention. They had harnessed gravitational forces in a way that defied human comprehension. Commander Dev Afolabi's voice crackled over the comm from orbit. "Captain, we're monitoring your feed. The readings from your suits are beyond anything I've seen. Is everyone all right down there?" "We're stable, Commander," Ayla replied. "But the gravitational pulses are intense. I want a direct link to the ship's mainframe. Start analyzing these data sets in real time. Let's get every mind on board, working on decoding this." Afalabi's answer came immediately, calm but urgent. "Copy that. Sending additional computing resources your way." Over the next half hour, the landing team spread out across the platform, carefully documenting every surface. Chief Rhodes and Lieutenant Garza took up defensive positions, scanning the perimeter for movement or changes in the environment. Dr. Bashir, Orvar, and 2 field researchers, Yuri Chen, a geologist, and Marta de la Cruz, a planetary chemist, moved from pillar to pillar, capturing high-resolution images, taking samples of the metallic surface, and measuring the fluctuations in gravity. But it was Orvar who made the first breakthrough. Standing near the center of the platform, he angled his scanner at the crystalline lattice beneath him. The readout showed waveforms repeating in cycles, a swirl of numbers. Many were random, but some repeated. He carefully isolated the repeating clusters, watching as they formed a spiral wave on his device's tiny screen. "Captain," he said, excitement straining his voice, "I think I see a numerical sequence within the pulses, like fractal expansions of pi. Look here." He held out the scanner so Ayla could see. It's not just random fluctuations, it's referencing pi at multiple scales. She eyed the display. Meaning what, exactly? It suggests that whatever's powering this device is communicating using universal constants, like a cosmic language only mathematics can translate. It's similar to the main anomaly, but far more granular. This could be a local hub of sorts, referencing the same fundamental message. Ayla let out a slow breath, goosebumps pricking her skin despite the sealed suit. "So, it's all connected." "Likely," Orvar replied. "And if so, we're standing on an artifact that might be related to whoever or whatever created the anomaly we're here to investigate." Their comms crackled again. This time, Dr. Bashir's voice sounded subdued, almost reverent. "Captain, I think you need to see this. We found an entrance." A doorway beneath the dust at the far side of the platform, partially concealed by a fallen pillar and a thick layer of dust. Dr. Bashir had uncovered what looked like a curved seam in the floor. Under the combined lights of her helmet and the geologist's, the outline resembled a hatch of sorts. A faint glow shone from within. "Help me brush this off," Bashir murmured. The geologist, Yuri Chen, used a portable vacuum tool to suck away decades, perhaps centuries, of dust and debris. Bit by bit, the seam became clearer, a perfect oval outline of pale metal embedded flush with the floor. Marta de la Cruz gently tapped the material with a sonic probe. "It's not the same alloy as the pillars, more like a layered composite, something extremely durable." As she spoke, A section of the hatch flickered with a soft, bluish luminescence. Then, without warning, the seam split open with a hiss, emitting a swirl of pale gas. The entire landing team froze, hearts hammering. Had they triggered something dangerous? Dr. Bashir stepped back, her eyes on the readouts. Toxic levels are stable, no sudden spikes. The gas is mostly ammonia and trace inert compounds. Might just be stored atmosphere from within. A moment later, the hatch sank inward, then slid aside with a smooth mechanical hum, revealing a dark staircase descending into the planet's crust. Faint lights glowed along the walls, reminiscent of the crystalline veins that webbed the platform. Silence held them all in thrall for a long second. Then Ayla's voice rose, firm and cautious. We proceed slowly. Keep scanning for traps, structural instability, anything. If it gets too dangerous, we fall back. Security officers Mendez and Garza stepped up first, sidearms drawn. They aimed their helmet lamps into the passage. The lights revealed walls of the same shimmering metallic composite, etched with more of those swirling inscriptions. The pathway sloped downward, turning gently out of sight. Unbelievable, muttered Mendez, stepping onto the first stair. This place could be ancient, but it's still powered, or at least partially active. Orvar joined them, swallowing hard. Active means we might be dealing with automated systems, machines, or defenses that have lasted who knows how long. Despite the caution in everyone's voice, curiosity pulled them forward like a gravitational force. One by one, they descended into the darkness, each footstep echoing in the sealed silence of their suits. The glow from the walls grew stronger as they went deeper, illuminating the path in a shifting palette of blues and purples. It was as if the structure itself was guiding them inward. At the rear of the group, Captain Harrington glanced over her shoulder, imagining the dusty canyon behind them, pillars reaching toward the dismal sky. They were leaving behind the relative openness of the surface for a descent into the unknown heart of an alien creation. Her chest tightened at the magnitude of it all. She had promised caution, but how could they turn away from a find like this? They pressed on, step by measured step. Behind them, the hatch remained open, the swirling orange dust occasionally drifting into the tunnel's mouth. Ahead, the luminous walls beckoned, etched with cryptic shapes that might have once been a living language. In the silence, Ayla thought she could almost hear them speak, whispering across gulfs of time, urging them to unravel the puzzle they had begun to glimpse on this barren planet. And with every beat of her heart, she felt the hum of the gravitational pulses beneath the surface, as if an ancient heartbeat resonated through stone and metal. Something was alive here in its own way, and it was waiting for them to discover it. Chapter 10. Chamber of Echoes. After descending for several minutes, the passage leveled off and opened into a vast chamber. The air was thicker here, though still toxic, laced with swirling dust motes that danced in the beams of the team's helmet lights. At the room's center stood a tall, cylindrical console, its surface webbed in glowing conduits similar to those on the platform above. Holographic symbols, miniature versions of the etched pillars, drifted around the console in a slow, mesmerizing orbit. The explorers paused at the threshold, hearts pounding in unison. Captain Harrington's gaze swept the chamber, taking in every detail. The floor and walls rose in graceful arcs, forming a domed ceiling overhead. Additional pillars, smaller, more ornate, ringed the perimeter, each carved with spiraling lines that merged seamlessly into the ceiling. Faint, pulsating lights rippled through these lines, causing the entire chamber to flicker with ghostly radiance. "It's beautiful," Dr. Bashir breathed. Awe reverberated in her voice. "But what is it for?" Orvar stepped forward, cautiously, scanning the console. It might be some control panel or part of a data processing system. These holographic symbols. He reached out, letting his gloved fingertips brush the floating lights. They flickered, shifting in response. They look reactive, nervous. Energy crackled among the team. Mendez and Garza kept their weapons at the ready, scanning the chamber for any sign of movement or mechanical threat. The gravitational pulses were stronger here, a deep rhythm that Ayla felt in her own pulse. "Be careful," Chief Rhodes said, stepping closer to Orvar, but keeping a hand near her sidearm. "We have no idea what we're dealing with." Ayla couldn't help but agree. The presence of such advanced technology, presumably centuries or millennia old, defied easy explanation. She walked a slow arc around the room, shining her helmet lamp on the walls. The swirling inscriptions continued, melding into geometric patterns that converged at the chamber's apex. She wondered if it was a form of star map or a cosmic diagram. It reminded her, in a distant way, of ancient human star charts. Dr. Bashir and the two field researchers carefully collected more samples from the walls and pillars. "These inscriptions might hold the key to the entire site," Bashir said, scanning a series of intricate lines. "If we can decode them, maybe find repeated symbols, we might begin to grasp the purpose of this facility." Meanwhile, Orvar studied the holographic display with undisguised curiosity. The symbols drifted in circular orbits around the console, swirls, lines, and shapes reminiscent of the patterns above ground. Tentatively, he placed a small data receiver near one of the glowing conduits on the console's base, attempting to capture the flow of data. His comm crackled. "Captain, I'm trying to record the signals from these conduits. It's complicated. The data pulses are far beyond typical digital or analog formats. Ayla nodded. Take it slow. No sense triggering a reaction. We're only observers until we understand more. Then, abruptly, something changed. A low hum resonated through the chamber, and the floating glyphs spun faster. A swirling shape flickered above the console, a larger hologram forming, perhaps, in response to Orvar's proximity. All lights in the room pulsed in unison, and a tremor rattled the floor. Everyone, back up, Ayla ordered, adrenaline surging. She half expected an attack, or for the chamber to collapse. But instead of aggression, the swirling hologram stabilized into a recognizable figure, a stylized spiral galaxy rotating serenely in midair. Concentric lines extended from its core, forming a lattice that resembled a three-dimensional map. A hush fell. It's a star chart, Dr. Bashir said, eyes wide with disbelief. Look, those cluster patterns might be recognized constellations, but the scale is enormous. It's referencing multiple galaxies, Orvar murmured, lifting his scanner. This map goes far beyond our Milky Way. These swirling clusters are likely neighboring galaxies, Andromeda, Triangulum, more we haven't even cataloged. Shiver coursed through Ayla. Whoever built this place had possessed knowledge of galaxies across unimaginable distances. This technology was ancient, left behind on a toxic world. Why, as the team watched, the galactic map zoomed in, focusing on a region near the outskirts of the Milky Way. A luminous point pulsed there, then branched into smaller points, each connected by lines. The imagery was dizzying, as though the system wanted to show them a route or a network of some sort. It's referencing the same coordinates as our main anomaly, Orvar realized aloud. That bright pulse, it's nearly identical to the signature we've been tracking. A second tremor ran through the floor, rattling dust from the ceiling. The holographic map flickered, then expanded again, revealing a series of swirling symbols around the galaxy's outer arms. The pulses matched the same cyclical pattern they had detected in the main anomaly and in the platform above. Captain, Rhodes said, voice taut, we should consider the possibility that the site is waking up or reacting to us. These tremors could intensify. Ayla gritted her teeth, torn between the urge to leave and the need to learn more. We'll gather as much data as we can. Orvar, record everything from the map. Bashir, document every inscription. Then we're out of here. She stepped forward, letting the swirling holograms wash over her visor. Up close, the star chart hummed with otherworldly energy. Tiny sparks arced between the lines. The cyclical pulses grew stronger again, like a cosmic heartbeat matching her own racing pulse. It felt, in a strange way, like the structure itself had been waiting for visitors, waiting to reveal a message across eons. But what was the message? To come find them? To follow a path? Or to warn away intruders? Ayla's mind buzzed with unanswerable questions. Suddenly, a loud crack reverberated from above. Dust and small shards of stone rained down. The tremors were getting worse. Orvar scrambled to retrieve his data receiver, and Dr. Bashir called for the others to finish collecting samples. "Time to go," Ayla barked, voice echoing. "Move!" Within seconds, the holographic galaxy flickered out, leaving the chamber in dim, pulsing light. The console's glow faded, as if powering down after an ancient cycle had run its course. Another deep rumble shook the chamber. The Hashinet group rushed back through the corridor they'd come from, hearts hammering. As they ascended the winding staircase, the pulses beneath the floor seemed to surge, warping the gravity around them. Ayla stumbled, struggling to maintain balance. Stones clattered from overhead. Mendez gripped the rope railing, eyes wide. "This place is coming down." They pressed onward, adrenaline pumping. When the team finally reached the surface, they found the canyon in disarray. Dust storms raged, sweeping between the pillars, and the gravitational pulses crackled with even greater intensity. A swirling wind spun across the octagonal platform, hurling debris into the air. "Back to the shuttle," Ayla shouted over the comm. The group sprinted across the uneven ground, stumbling as the pulses buckled the terrain beneath their feet. At the cliff, Security Officer Garza secured a quick line, and they scaled upward, practically dragged by frantic determination. Barely 10 minutes after emerging from the subterranean chamber, they were at the Aurora, panting inside their suits, the ramp sealed behind them, and the cabin pressurized. Ayla yanked off her helmet, sweat beading on her temples. The shuttle's engines roared to life, lifting off the plateau as the canyon below trembled like a wounded beast. From the window, they watched as one of the towering pillars tilted and crashed, sending up an orange plume of dust. A wave of gravitational distortion rippled through the canyon in its wake. In her seat, Ayla's heart pounded like a drum. They had escaped, data in hand, but the site below seemed to be collapsing, as though reacting to their presence or some triggered mechanism. As the shuttle climbed higher, the pillars receded into swirling clouds. The star glimmered overhead, tinted by the planet's murky atmosphere. Dr. Bashir exhaled, running a trembling hand through her sweat-dampened hair. "We got the scans. I just hope we can piece it all together now." Orvar clutched the data receiver, face drawn but triumphant. "We learned enough to confirm a connection between this site and our main anomaly. We also discovered a star chart referencing multiple galaxies. That alone is historic." Ayla nodded, though her mind kept returning to the feeling that the site itself had awakened, and perhaps wasn't pleased by their intrusion. Were they at risk? Or was it simply ancient machinery on the brink of failure? She couldn't say, but one certainty blazed through her thoughts. The path ahead led to the gravitational anomaly they sought, an anomaly intimately linked to advanced technology that spanned time and distance. Leaving the planet behind, she felt both relief and a deepening sense of awe. Humanity had touched the edges of an ancient tapestry, one woven among the stars, and now there was no turning back. Chapter 11. Ties that bind back. Aboard the Odyssey's Light, Captain Harrington and her landing team underwent immediate decontamination in one of the ship's quarantine bays. Toxic dust coated their suits, and standard protocols required thorough cleansing and health checks. Medical Officer Yvonne Carswell and her team administered scans, searching for any sign of contamination or radiation sickness. An hour later, freshly showered and dressed in standard ship uniforms, the 8 explorers were seated in the main conference room, eyes hollow with fatigue, yet alight with lingering adrenaline. A large, curved display dominated the wall, where Dr. Chevalier had already begun uploading the data gleaned from the planet's subterranean chamber. Commander Dev Afolabi and Chief Engineer Leon Song joined them, along with several department heads, to witness the first preliminary analysis. The overhead lights dimmed as Orvar brought up the star chart projection. It was a carefully reconstructed hologram of what they'd witnessed below ground, an expansive galaxy map with bright lines bridging star systems. From what we've decoded so far, Orvar began, this chart includes our galaxy and at least 2 neighboring galaxies. The highlighted points, here, here, and here, seem to mark locations of gravitational anomalies similar to the one we're heading toward. In total, we've found references to 5, maybe 6 such anomalies across an enormous scale. Gasps spread among the assembled crew. Dr. Bashir took over. Some of these anomalies could still be active, while others might have gone dark eons ago. The inscriptions we recorded may shed more light, but deciphering them will take time. Commander Afolabi rubbed his chin, staring at the glowing lines. So this planet's site might have been a relay or node in a larger network? Orvar nodded, excited. Exactly. It's not just a random artifact. We suspect that centuries or millennia ago, some civilization built a network of gravitational manipulation sites across at least one quadrant of the galaxy, possibly beyond. The pulses we've detected could be a signal, a call, or even a navigational beacon. A hush followed. The scale of the revelation was staggering. Humanity had ventured beyond Earth, colonized distant worlds. But this was something else. Evidence of an intergalactic infrastructure left behind by unknown architects. Captain Harrington's mind whirled with the implications. Chief Engineer Song leaned forward, clasping her hands. If multiple anomalies are connected, it might mean each site serves a purpose in stabilizing or transmitting something. Could it be a transportation network, or a communication grid? What if these anomalies are gateways? A wave of excitement electrified the room. The notion of ancient stargates or wormholes had always been a staple of human speculation, but now they had found something that might lend credence to it. Dr. Bashir cleared her throat. We can't confirm that yet, of course, but it's possible that the gravitational anomalies function in ways we haven't even imagined. All we know is that the site we visited is in ruin, a fraction of its original power. The collapse we witnessed could have been the last gasp of centuries-old technology. Ayla folded her arms and took a measured breath. Our mission remains to investigate the main anomaly. Now we have confirmation it's part of a broader system. The question is, how does this help us once we get there? You mean, if we can interface with it somehow? Orvar said, a hint of awe in his voice. Or even just observe it in greater detail to figure out the original intent. There's a chance we could unlock technology beyond our wildest dreams. Commander Afolabi's gaze darkened slightly. It might also be dangerous. If these anomalies were used as weapons or had catastrophic side effects, tampering with them could be lethal. Silence settled over the table. The revelation was a double-edged sword, promise and peril woven together. Ayla glanced at her senior officers, seeing the reflection of her own conflict in their eyes. In that moment, she resolved that they would proceed, but with utmost caution. She cleared her throat. We're still 3 days' travel from the main anomaly. Let's use that time wisely. Orvar, I want a team dedicated to analyzing these inscriptions. Kira, you'll coordinate the xenobiology angle. Maybe the structure's composition can give us clues about its builders. Chief Song, see if you can glean any practical engineering insights from the data. Let's find out as much as we can before we arrive. Nods of agreement circled the table. The meeting concluded, leaving each crew member charged with a sense of urgency and a renewed sense of destiny. Later that evening, the corridors of the Odyssey's Light echoed with subdued activity. After the briefing, most crew members returned to their stations or labs, working into the late hours. Data from the planet streamed across the ship's networks, dissected by advanced algorithms and the combined intellect of scientists, engineers, and AI-driven analysis systems. Dr. Chevalier, physically drained but mentally wired, paced in Lab 2B, reviewing the newest fractal patterns derived from the site's inscriptions. Each pattern revealed partial hints of a complex symbolic system, though no one had cracked its linguistic core yet. He sipped strong coffee, ignoring the gnawing pang in his stomach. Across the lab, Dr. Bashir rubbed her temples as she scrutinized a digital model of the sub-level chamber. She had overlaid the star chart with known cosmic phenomena, but the puzzle remained incomplete. I need a break, she murmured. My eyes are blurring. Orvar joined her, setting down his coffee mug. We've made staggering progress. Let's not forget that. In less than a day, we confirmed this site is part of a vast network. It's monumental. She allowed herself a small smile. You're right, it's just, the more we uncover, the bigger the mystery gets. Who built it? Where are they now? Orvar sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Gone, extinct, ascended. No clue. Maybe we'll learn more at the main anomaly. Maybe we'll never know. They fell silent, the hum of the lab consoles filling the space between them. For the briefest moment, Dr. Bashir let the enormity of it all wash over her. She remembered the hush of the Jamaican night sky that Captain Harrington once described. How infinite the cosmos seemed back then. Now, the universe was even vaster than she'd imagined. Get some rest, Orvar finally said gently. We'll pick this up tomorrow. She nodded, stepping away from the console. In the corridor, she felt the pulse of the ship's engines, the quiet promise that they were sailing through a cosmic ocean where distant mysteries waited. Farther down the corridor, Captain Harrington stood at a wide observation window. Earth was a faint memory now, too far away to see. Starlight streamed through the reinforced glass, a tapestry of distant suns. She pondered all that lay ahead, a gravitational anomaly that pulsed with intelligence, a web of cosmic sites built by unknown hands, and the weight of an entire crew's hopes and fears. The path forward felt like standing on the edge of a meadow at twilight, stepping into the dim glow of an unknown horizon. Once more, she felt that sense of calling, an invitation to understand something beyond human limits. In that moment, she quietly reaffirmed her vow. We will see this through. Chapter 12. Shadows of what came before. By the next morning, the Odyssey's light was back in warp, forging ahead toward the anomaly. The ship's routines continued, but an undercurrent of tension and excitement permeated everything. Crew members whispered about the alien sight over meals in the galley and in the snatches of conversation in the corridors. Even the sleep pods in the living quarters seemed to hum with latent energy. During one of the daily briefings, Dr. Chevalier announced a tentative breakthrough on the inscriptions. We've found repeated symbols that might correlate with star positions. Combining that with the data from the holographic star chart, we're isolating references to over 100 celestial objects. Some are known pulsars or quasars, others we can't identify at all. Rika Tanaka, their skilled navigator, chimed in via hololink from the navigation deck. I can incorporate these references into our stellar cartography database. Maybe we can figure out if each symbol represents a star, a black hole, or something else. If these inscriptions are a map, we could eventually chart the network's entire extent. Ayla felt a jolt of optimism. That's great progress. Keep me updated on anything you decipher. especially if it points to strategies for safely interacting with the anomaly. As the meeting concluded, Commander Afolabi pulled Ayla aside. "Captain, a word?" They stepped into an adjacent corridor, the overhead lights reflecting off the polished walls. The faint rumble of the warp engines reverberated beneath their feet. Afolabi's expression was measured, concerned. "I want to talk about the signal we picked up earlier in our journey. It never repeated, but I can't shake the feeling it's connected to all of this. We only caught that faint transmission once, like a heartbeat in the dark." Ayla crossed her arms. "You think it originated from another site, like the one we found on that planet?" He nodded. "Could be, or it might be something else entirely. Perhaps we should send out a focused listening array as we approach the anomaly. If there are other signals, we don't want to miss them." She considered his words, then nodded. "Good idea. Coordinate with engineering and communications. Make it happen." As he left, Ayla stared down the corridor, lost in thought. The weight of the discoveries pressed on her. Though the crew was enthusiastic, a sliver of fear gnawed at her. Fear of what they might awaken or fail to understand. Still, the anomaly beckoned, like a silent promise of answers. The Warrior's Vigil. Later that day, Chief Rhodes was off duty from her security post and decided to visit the ship's modest gym. She found it empty. Most crew members were either working or resting. Good. She'd needed space to clear her head. She shed her uniform jacket, revealing toned arms, crisscrossed with faint scars, memories of past missions where she'd faced everything from cosmic radiation storms to hostile pirates in uncharted space. She stepped onto a training mat, exhaled, and began a series of slow, deliberate martial arts forms. Her breathing steadied. Each movement was precise, honed by years of discipline in her mind. She saw the alien chambers, the swirling inscriptions, the glow of holograms. She remembered the sense that something had watched them from within those walls. The hair on the back of her neck prickled. Logically, she knew there'd been no active life signs, but centuries-old technology could still be dangerous if misused or mishandled. Completing the final form, Rhodes paused, heart pumping steadily. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. Her security instincts told her to prepare for the worst, perhaps an unknown threat at the anomaly. But another part of her felt an uncharacteristic tremor of wonder. If this advanced civilization was still out there, or if remnants of it lived on in those gravitational sites, the potential for life-altering knowledge was vast. "Focus," she whispered to herself. She resumed a second martial arts sequence, this time faster. Each strike and block a testament to her readiness for whatever lay ahead. Hearts and voices. Meanwhile, in the ship's small chapel, a multi-denominational space tucked near the medical bay, Dr. Kira Bashir knelt in silent reflection. She wasn't particularly religious, but she found the stillness comforting after the harrowing experience on the planet. She needed a moment of solitude. She closed her eyes, recalling the swirling lines etched on the alien pillars. The lines had felt alive, like the echo of a voice across time. In that subterranean chamber, she'd sensed a presence that defied explanation. Even if it wasn't a literal spirit or consciousness, it had resonance, something left behind by beings who once inhabited or traversed these worlds. There was a longing in that notion, a longing to understand, to connect. She thought about her role aboard the ship, xenobiologist, bridging the gap between human knowledge and the possibility of life beyond Earth. So far, that life had mostly taken the form of microbes, primitive organisms, or extinct species discovered on distant rocks. But this was something else, the signature of an intelligence that rivaled or surpassed humanity's own. A soft chime signaled a visitor. Dr. Bashir rose, smoothing her uniform. The door slid open, revealing Dr. Chevalier. He offered a tentative smile. I was checking the labs and noticed you'd stepped out. Mind if I join you? She nodded, stepping aside. Orvar moved into the chapel, hands clasped behind his back. Quite a space, he said, glancing at the minimalistic decor. A few symbols of major human faiths, a small fountain of recycled water that bubbled softly in the corner. It's quiet here, she said. I come sometimes to think, nodded, understanding. For a moment, the two scientists stood side by side, letting the hush envelop them. The only sound was the gentle trickle of water and the distant thrum of the ship's engines. Finally, Orvar exhaled. I can't get those inscriptions out of my mind. They're like a riddle I can almost solve if I just turn it the right way. Bashir smiled faintly. You'll solve it, I'm sure. You have that kind of dedication. He let out a short laugh. It's not just me. It's all of us. I feel like we're standing on a brink, like we're about to find answers to questions we didn't even know we had. She gazed at the small fountain, entranced by the rippling water. And what if those answers lead to more questions or something dangerous? Orvar's brow creased. Then we face it head on. That's who we are, explorers, scientists. We don't run from what we don't understand. She considered his words, recalling the fear she'd felt when the subterranean structure began to quake. Yet she also remembered the exhilaration of seeing that holographic galaxy. You're right, she said quietly. We pressed on before. We'll do it again. Their eyes met. A silent affirmation of trust and shared purpose. Outside, the corridors hummed with the energy of a starship in flight, forging its path through unknown space. And somewhere ahead, the anomaly pulsed with ancient, cryptic signals, beckoning them closer, closer to the truth at the heart of the cosmos. Chapter 13. The Gathering. Storm 2 days later, the final warp transition dropped them just shy of the Taldaris expanse, the region where the main anomaly resided. The starfield outside the ship's windows was dark and spangled with unfamiliar constellations. They were far beyond the usual shipping lanes, nothing but emptiness on the nav charts. With a single exception, the anomaly's coordinates, now less than half a light year away. The bridge was unusually crowded for the reversion to sublight. Captain Harrington stood at her command chair, Commander Afalabi at her side, while Lieutenant Tanaka piloted the final approach. Large displays showed real-time sensor readings, gravitational spikes, electromagnetic fluctuations, cosmic background radiation, all spiked in irregular patterns. Evidence that they were nearing the phenomenon that had drawn them across space. Orvar Chevalier, leaning over a secondary console, whistled softly. The readings are stronger than we anticipated. The pulses are huge, like solar flares of gravity, if that's even possible. Chief Engineer Song nodded, eyes narrowed. The warp engines and structural integrity fields should hold, but we need to be careful with how close we get. Even the best alloys can't withstand infinite stress. Ayla glanced around, noticing the tension etched on every face. Commander, Afalabi, what's our approach plan? He tapped a console, bringing up a tactical overlay. We'll close in to a safe orbit around the phenomenon, about 1.2 million kilometers out. That should keep us beyond the strongest gravitational shears. From there, we can send in drones and probes for closer analysis. Good, Ayla said. Let's proceed. Gradually, Odyssey's light advanced. Stars drifted across the viewports, shifting subtly as Lieutenant Tanaka maneuvered with gentle thruster bursts. All eyes remained locked on the sensor readouts. Wave after wave of gravitational pulses rolled through the region, each one slightly different, forming patterns that Orvar's computers struggled to decipher in real time. When they finally reached their designated orbit, the anomaly came into view on the main screen. A hush fell across the bridge. It appeared as a vortex of shimmering darkness, a swirling distortion in the fabric of space. Tendrils of light bent around it, forming a halo or starlight refracted in bizarre shapes. The center pulsated, sometimes brightening with a violet hue, then dimming into near opacity. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying, like a cosmic whirlpool that threatened to suck them into an unknown dimension. System stable, Chief Song reported, though her voice carried a tremor of awe. Hull integrity is holding. The gravitational waves are intense, but not at a lethal level at this distance. Ayla let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. All right, people, this is it. She lifted her chin, addressing the entire bridge. We've traveled across the stars for this moment. Let's see what we can learn about this anomaly and how it ties into the network we discovered. with those words, Odyssey's Light began its most ambitious scientific mission yet, unraveling the secrets of a gravitational phenomenon that dwarfed any natural occurrence known to humankind. The first probe, within an hour, a sleek reconnaissance drone, codenamed Pearl 1, launched from the ship's dorsal bay. The vessel was bristling with sensors, cameras, and protective shielding, designed for extreme gravitational conditions. Controlled by Lieutenant Tanaka and Orvar from the bridge, the drone advanced toward the swirling vortex at careful increments. At first, Pearl 1 transmitted steady data, gravitational flux rates, magnetometric readings, exotic particle streams. The feed scrolled across monitors, a torrent of numbers that sent the science team into a frenzy of analysis. Then, at approximately 900,000 kilometers from the anomaly, the drone encountered a sudden distortion. The camera feed flickered, and a powerful gravitational wave slammed into its shielding. On the bridge, Lieutenant Tanaka gripped the control stick, face etched with concentration. "It's intense, Captain. The drone stabilizers are straining," Chief Engineer Song typed furiously on a console. "Try redistributing power from the secondary thrusters to the shielding matrix." Tanaka complied. For a few heartbeats, the drone steadied, forging closer. The swirling vortex grew larger in the feed, its purple glow warping the stars behind it. Orvar Chevalier's eyes gleamed. "We're picking up an energy spike like a directed pulse from within the anomaly. It's there." On the main screen, a sudden flash of purple light erupted around the vortex's core. Pearl 1's feed flared into static. The drone's telemetry spiked, then fell silent. "Drone is offline," Lieutenant Tanaka reported, voice subdued. "We've lost contact." A tension-laden silence gripped the bridge. Chief Rhodes and Commander Afolabi exchanged grave looks. Had the drone been destroyed, or was it simply cut off by the anomaly's interference? Ayla clenched her fists, heart sinking. "Any chance it's intact?" "Laia," Tanaka shook her head. "Unknown. All signals are scrambled." Dr. Chevalier quickly reviewed the data from Pearl 1's final moments. It was a massive directed pulse, like the anomaly actively repelled the probe. This may confirm it's not just a passive phenomenon. There's an intelligence at work, or at least an automated defense mechanism. A ripple of unease spread through the bridge. If the anomaly was guarded by advanced technology, penetrating it would be far more dangerous than they'd planned. Yet, the discovery also validated their suspicions. The gravitational pulses weren't random. Something or someone had created them. Commander Afolabi cleared his throat, his voice calm, yet resolute. "We can try sending a second probe with better shielding, but if that also fails, we may have to reconsider our approach." Ayla nodded slowly. "Let's proceed cautiously. We came here to discover, not to lose precious resources. Analyze the data from Pearl 1's last seconds. Maybe we can adapt. As the bridge returned to a tense hum of activity, the swirling anomaly on the main screen seemed to gaze back at them, vibrant and inscrutable. Ayla watched it, an odd mixture of dread and fascination tugging at her soul. They were on the brink of a revelation, and possibly a confrontation with something beyond their comprehension. Chapter 14, Doorways in the Dark. The hours that followed the loss of Pearl 1 were among the most frantic in the ship's short history. Teams scrambled to interpret the final data bursts. Chief Engineer Song coordinated with Dr. Chevalier and Lieutenant Tanaka, trying to enhance the protective measures for a follow-up probe. Dr. Bashir searched for correlations between the anomaly's defensive pulse and the artifacts they discovered on the toxic planet. In Lab 2B, Orvar hunched over a projection of waveforms from Pearl 1's last transmission. The wave spike was sharp, almost symmetrical. He traced the shape with his fingertip, heart pounding. Could it be part of the fractal sequences they'd seen in the inscriptions? "Captain," he said, tapping his comm badge. "I think I see a pattern in the pulse that took out Pearl 1. It's similar to the fractal expansions of pi we detected in the alien inscriptions." Ayla's response crackled in his ear. So the anomaly recognized the probe as an intruder and responded using that fractal code? Possibly. It's as if the anomaly tested the probe, scanned or probed it in return. When it recognized no matching signature, it ejected Pearl 1. Is there a way to mimic that signature? Fool the anomaly into letting us in? Orvar paused, heart hammering. "We can try. If we encode the same fractal patterns from the inscriptions into the probe's shielding modulation, maybe the anomaly will treat it as part of its network. It's a shot in the dark, but it's the best lead we have." "All right," Ayla answered. "Work with Chief Song and Commander Afolabi. Let's get a second probe ready." Orvar nodded, even though she couldn't see him. After severing the link, he began furiously uploading the code from the alien site's fractal inscriptions. Time was short. The question was whether the anomaly would respond like the site's subterranean machine had. Would it awaken further, or would it allow the newly cloaked probe passage? Second attempt. 12 hours later, Pearl 2 launched. It boasted reinforced shields, a new fractal modulation layer, and an advanced AI subroutine designed to react to sudden gravitic shifts. In the dark of space, its engines glowed faintly, propelling it closer to the swirling vortex. On the Odyssey's light bridge, tension was palpable. Distance to anomaly, 1,000,000 kilometers, Lieutenant Tanaka reported, voice tight but steady. "Shield integrity holding." Commander Afolabi monitored the probe's feed on a secondary screen. Data link is stable. Gravity waves increasing. Pulse cycle intensifying. Once again, the vortex flared with violet light, but this time, Pearl 2's fractal shielding responded. Waveform readings spiked, then evened out. As the new modulation kicked in, the drone's camera feed flickered, but remained online. "We're still transmitting," Orvar exclaimed, leaning forward in excitement. A hush spread across the bridge. Everyone watched the swirling distortions. Pearl 2 inched closer. The gravitational forces were massive, straining even the improved shielding, but the fractal pattern seemed to placate the anomaly enough to prevent a direct defensive pulse. Distance 800,000 kilometers, 700,000, 600,000, Tanaka called out. The probe's visuals displayed cosmic chaos, space bent at impossible angles, starlight twisted into arcs, and the vortex's core pulsed like the heart of a living giant. "All systems nominal," Chief Song confirmed, wiping sweat from her brow. "Fractal modulation is holding at 500,000 kilometers. Pearl 2 sent back an unexpected reading. Inside the anomaly's central swirl, there appeared to be a region of stabilized space-time, a bubble, for lack of a better term. The data suggested normal gravitational levels within that pocket. It's like an eye in a storm," Dr. Bashir breathed. A sense of wonder swept the bridge. Could it be that the anomaly wasn't merely a destructive force, but a gateway to a calm region hidden in the heart of chaos? Probes at 400,000 kilometers, Tanaka updated. No major wave attacks yet. Suddenly, the feed flickered. The swirling center of the anomaly brightened to a brilliant violet, then parted, revealing what looked like a corridor, a tunnel of darkness framed by arcs of luminous energy. Gasps echoed around the bridge. "Is that an opening?" Afolabi asked, leaning closer to the screen. Pearl 2's sensors confirmed it. The anomaly's gravitational field had shifted, creating a passage within the swirling distortion. Orvar's voice trembled with excitement. "It's responding to the fractal code. It's letting the probe in," Captain Harrington steadied her breathing, trying to remain calm despite the torrent of adrenaline. "Commander, any sign of danger to Pearl 2? Afolabi scanned the readouts. "Not yet. The gravitational gradient is steep, but the probe can handle it for now." Ayla stared at the screen, mind reeling. Could this truly be a gateway? An ancient path to a distant corner of space, or another dimension entirely? The possibilities bordered on the fantastic. "Take it in, carefully," she said quietly. Pearl 2 advanced. The vortex's walls seemed to ripple, forming an elongated tunnel. Static crept into the feed. The little drone sensor arrays recorded an unimaginable flow of exotic particles. Then, with a sudden lurch, it vanished into the corridor, enveloped by the swirling anomaly. For several seconds, the bridge's screens showed only static and cryptic data streams. Chief Song tried to compensate, adjusting the communication frequencies. Everyone held their breath. Then, unexpectedly, Pearl 2's signal cleared. The camera feed returned, showing a star field unlike anything the crew had seen. Giant arcs of luminescent nebulae glowed in the distance, framing a distant galaxy's swirl. No sign of the swirling vortex, only quiet space, dotted with new constellations. Stunned silence engulfed the bridge. "There, not our stars," whispered Dr. Bashir. "This is somewhere else entirely." Orvar's eyes brimmed with wonder. "It's a passage, like a door in space-time." Commander Afolabi nodded, scanning coordinates. "We can't get a precise fix, but if I'm reading this right, Pearl 2 might be thousands, if not millions, of light years away." Alia felt goosebumps on her arms. The fractal-coded anomaly had created or revealed a gateway to a far-flung region of space, or possibly another galaxy altogether. Her heart pounded with anticipation, fear, and a dizzying sense of awe. The entire bridge crew stared at the feed of alien stars, mesmerized by the grand implications. Humanity had never possessed a means to cross intergalactic distances so quickly, not even in their wildest theories. Yet here, before their eyes, was proof it could be done. Lund Tanaka's voice cracked. "Captain, Pearl 2 is drifting. The corridor is unstable on this side. We might lose contact again if we can't stabilize it." Ayla forced herself to focus. "Commander, can we relay instructions for the probe to return? We need more data, and to see if two-way travel is possible." Afolabi keyed in commands. "Working on it." Seconds ticked by. The feed jittered, the image of that alien starfield flickering with static. Then the swirling vortex reappeared on the screen, as if the drone's camera had spun around. A luminous corridor led back through shifting energy. The feed crackled, and the drone soared forward, retracing its path. Moments later, Pearl 2 emerged from the vortex on the near side, the Odyssey's light side. The entire crew erupted in cheers. This was no mere wormhole that collapsed after one trip. It seemed stable enough for a round trip, at least for the drone. Alia rose from her chair, hands trembling with excitement. On screen, Pearl 2 was battered but intact, drifting only a few thousand kilometers from the anomaly's rim. Data poured in, confirming the unimaginable, a potential gateway spanning intergalactic space, triggered by the fractal signature they'd discovered on that toxic planet. No one spoke for a long moment. They simply stared at the swirling anomaly, trying to grasp the magnitude of this revelation. Finally, Ayla found her voice, though it shook with emotion. "We've just witnessed a door opening across the universe, all thanks to the clues left behind by an ancient civilization. We don't yet know what lies beyond, or if it's safe for a crewed vessel. But this could change everything we thought we knew about cosmic travel." Commander Afolabi nodded solemnly. "What are your orders, Captain?" Ayla's eyes flicked to Orvar, to Dr. Bashir, to Chief Rhodes, to the entire senior staff. Each wore an expression of awe and uncertainty. In that moment, she remembered the hush of standing at a threshold, a meadow at twilight, beckoning her onward. Except now, that threshold was cosmic in scale. She drew a breath, steeling herself for the decision of a lifetime. We prepare, she said. We gather every bit of data. Then, if our calculations confirm it's even remotely feasible, we go through. A collective shiver ran through the bridge. They all understood that such a step was fraught with danger, but it was also the greatest leap of discovery humanity had ever faced. The promise of answers and wonders lay on the other side of that swirling corridor, and Odyssey's light was poised to cross it. No one knew what awaited them there, if the ancient architects lingered, or if new perils lurked in the darkness. But they would not turn back now. The call of the anomaly was undeniable, a cosmic siren song summoning them onward. End of part 2.